Good evening and welcome to the briefing meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is March 31st, 2021. We'll begin this evening with an invocation by our Community Development Director, Jeff Hatling.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Let's bow our heads. Lord, thank you for blessing us with this beautiful spring day, these showers you provide to add nourishment to this. And we ask you to continue to watch over us. We fight our way through this pandemic, and thank you for allowing us to see the potential end, and thank you for blessing us with safety as we conduct this meeting tonight. Be with the mayor and the aldermen as they briefed on the matters coming to them next Tuesday. And thank you once again for a wonderful community that will soon be celebrating a great anniversary. And these things we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. This is a remote meeting, so I'll do a roll call of the elected officials. And our town manager, Curtis Swisher, will do a roll call of the staff that is on the line. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton? Here. Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Kenny Cruz?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bruce Boyer?
Present, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Joe Penix?
Present, thank you.
Alderman Chris Thompson?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Swisher?
We have on line Jeff Hatling, Community Development Director, Catherine Dorn, Community Development, Dorn Maltva, Public Services Director, Ernie Pages, Parks and Rec Director, Franz Ader, Finance Director, and Scott Alderman, Fire Rescue Chief, Ronnie Bowles, Deputy Chief, and we have in the courtroom Crystal Tanner, HR Director, and Tim Summers, Police Chief, and Ed Powell's also on the line, as well as John Wolf.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the first item on the briefing agenda is the briefing on the April 6, 2021 regular meeting agenda. We'll have the invocation pledge, of course, then presentation to the Kernersville Parks Department of a proclamation for Arbor Day, which the town of Kernersville is celebrating on April 23rd, and then public hearings. Item 1A is a voluntary annexation petition by Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for property located on Beeson Road, across from Ivy Redmond Sports Complex, at the intersection of Beeson Court, containing 13.539 acres more or less, and consideration of an ordinance annexing said property. Mr. Hatling?
I'm covered. It's just the annexation for the property that the town purchased. As you go down Beeson Road, it's on the left, right across from the dog park there at Ivy Redmond.
Does the board have any questions? And that will require a vote at a later meeting. So we will have the public hearing on Tuesday night, and then we'll vote on it at a later time. That brings us to the public session, which will include speakers from the floor. Item B is a presentation by Barry Baker of the Kernersville Area Society of Pickleball Enthusiasts. Mr. Swisher, do you have further information on that?
I do not have a lot of information. He contacted myself. I wanted to present something to Parks and Recreation for appreciation for what they've done for the pickleball enthusiasts in Kernersville and the surrounding area.
Okay, item C is the 2020 annual reports and 2021 budget requests for the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce, Senior Services, Senior Center, Next Step Ministries, Kernersville Little League, Sister City Commission, Kernersville Cares for Kids, and the Kernersville Historic Properties Commission. Mr. Swisher, do you have any additional information on any of those?
No, ma'am. I think you have all of the presentations and the information on the forms in your packet. As far as I know, they will all have someone here to make a short presentation to the board and to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Next will be items D, E, F, G, and H, which are all votes. They're a follow-up to public hearings that were held on March 2nd, 2021. And I'd like to ask our town clerk, Keith Hooker, have we received any public comments after the March 2nd meeting on any of these public hearing items?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hatling?
As the mayor described, a public hearing was held with no public comments. These text amendments are primarily associated with state statute changes to the planning legislation that rules and governs municipalities. So staff and the planning board is recommending approval of text amendment D, E, F, G, H, and I. H.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, then the next item will be item I. Consideration of an ordinance amending traffic schedule 4 of chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances to add Cedar Knoll Drive, both sides of the street, to the list of streets titled No Parking Anytime. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this is the street behind the new Farm Bureau office building on Highway 66 right in front of Abbott's Creek Apartments. They've had some issues with tractor trailers parking on that street overnight. So we need to add that to the no parking on both sides of the street.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? The next item is item J, consideration of an ordinance regarding the parking of food trucks in certain locations. Mr. Swisher?
This was brought to us, a request from one of the downtown businesses. It's the Follies, I think is the name of the new brewery there on North Main Street. The way our current ordinance is written, they are not allowed to park a food truck in a parking lot and sell food from it. The ordinance was not designed for that, but the ordinance says there shall be no selling on public street and some other things. So it includes basically no selling of food. So, with the increase in what we're seeing, the increase in some breweries there on Main Street, those folks serve food. I know the town last year when COVID hit, the town passed a temporary ordinance to allow them to set up in some town easements and right of ways. And I think KBC took advantage of that, set some tables out. So that's what we're recommending, and we think it will work and work well, is that you allow food trucks to park in one space, which means basically only one food truck, in one space in front of the business that is hosting them. So they have to be hosted by a business. They can park in that space Monday through Sunday from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So one business, for instance, if Kernersville Brewery wanted to have 5 food trucks, they couldn't do it. They can only have the one right in front of their business. We've checked through there. We don't see that it would cause any problem with parking on Main Street. And it would give those breweries and even other businesses, if one of them decides to hold an open house on a Saturday and have a food truck out there for their open house, technically they can't do that. So this ordinance would allow that to be done. And we think that it will, we don't see any problem with it. It's actually been done a couple times already, but it has been in violation of the ordinance. So we're recommending the change in that ordinance to allow that to be done.
Does the food truck always fit into one space, or do they overlap into a 1.5 spaces?
The ones we have seen so far will fit in one space. And if they overlap, it wouldn't really present an issue, I think, because what you see is most of the time the people that are parked right in front of the business are ones going into the business. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they will present an issue, but the food trucks I've seen so far will fit into that one space.
Okay.
Are there any other questions at this time? All right, the next item is item K, consideration of an agreement with Beeson's Crossroads Volunteer Fire Department. We have Mr. Swisher, there's Chief Alderman, and Chief Bowles. Mr. Swisher, do you want to start?
I will start, and then I'll cover it, kind of what the agreement is, and if there's any questions about something else that I'm not familiar with, either Chief Alderman or Mr. Wolf can answer those. But this is the agreement that we've been working on now for probably a little over a year, I would say, with Beeson's Crossroads. It may have been going on more than a year, maybe close to a year and a half. But it's what it does is it's an agreement to allow us to co-locate in the station there that Beeson's is currently in. We would, once that station is done, it takes some renovation, as you will see in the agreement. The station would need to be renovated so that we could fit our engine company in there as well as our equipment. We would then probably recommend selling Station 44, which is a station on Tig Lane. So we would co-locate in the station. We would still run our calls from the station. Beeson would run their calls from the station. The way the agreement is structured, Beeson's pays for the construction of the expansion to the station and the renovation. They pay for that. And we basically pay them every year the amount of their payment to the bank. I think with the construction, the renovation, and the extension of the fiber optic cable there, which will allow us also to have fiber optic cable at the new Parks and Rec Center, when it gets built, it's about $3.1 million for the station. It's a little higher than we first anticipated, but from a year and a half, 2 years ago, of course, construction has went up. Beeson would retain ownership of the station once the final payment is made and we pay the station off. The station then becomes a property of the town of Kernersville. So we at that time would own it. Also, if Beeson's shuts down and ceases to exist, then we would take over their district, answer their calls, and we would negotiate with the county to receive a portion of the fire tax that they receive. We will run calls with them, their calls. We will provide mutual aid response to them like we do now. So that would not change. And basically, it's like I told the board, it's what this does. Yes, it's, $3 million, but it's what it does. It allows us to build one station instead of two stations in the future. Our current plans called for a new Station 44 somewhere down in down Tig Lane, around Hitchcock Road. But doing this, if we go in at Beeson's, it will allow us to serve that area as well as the area on South Main Street, which is an area that right now we cannot serve in the time frame. So if we move Station 44 to what we'd planned before, the plan was to build 44 on down Tig Lane. At some point in the future, build a new station on South Main Street. So then you've got the cost of another station. The biggest cost to that is you have the recurring cost for at least 9 personnel in that station. Going into a station at Beeson's, we can move the personnel that we have at the current Station 44 to Beeson's, and then we don't have to hire 9 new personnel to fill out the station. So we strongly recommend this agreement with Beeson's. We think it will benefit both Beeson's and us in the future, and we think it will be a good fit for the town to go in this location. And it's a perfectly suited location for what we need to do. We've already had discussions probably with Winston-Salem about some mutual aid response there as well. So, Winston's just right on the other side of the road. So we don't, we don't see any drawbacks to doing this. And we think down the road in the future, it is the best solution for our fire service in that area and for South Main Street. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. Chief Alderman, Chief Bowles, Mr. Wolf, they can answer any as well if you have some specifically for them.
I don't have any problem at all with the idea and everything. I just noted that the agreement shows the 24th day of March as the effective date. And of course, we're not meeting until next week.
That was when Beeson's adopted it on their end. So
Okay.
we would, once this board adopts it, we would change that effective date of the agreement to be when you all adopt it, if you do so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And you do have a picture of what the station will look like in the back of the packet. You got some pictures from Omega Construction that shows what it would look like as well. And if you have any questions, if you don't have any tonight and you read through it and you have some, by Tuesday, just email me, call me, come by. Same with Chief Alderman or Chief Bowles, and we'll be glad to get you those answers.
Are there any more questions at this time? All right, the next item on the agenda is L, consideration of a contract for phase 1 of the Kernersville Greenway.
Well, after about 15 years of work, they say government doesn't move fast, but it usually is not that slow, I promise you. We have a contract to build a greenway that will, I don't think it's changed where it's starting and where it's ending. I think it's still starting on Oakhurst Street and ending at Kilburn. As you go down the hill there, I guess that's Kilburn Lane, maybe, I'm not sure. We put it out. We've got the contract, the bids back, and we're recommending awarding that contract to Smith Rowe Incorporated in the amount of $1.6 million to build the Greenway. And we have, you'll see later on, if you approve this, there is a budget amendment to go along with that, because the way this works is we have to pay for it in its entirety up front. Then DOT reimburses us for their part. Our portion of it will be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $500,000, and then DOT will pay the 1.1, somewhere roughly in there. But it's been a long time in the works, and I would just like to thank Dorn and Jeff, and Franz, and everybody else that's worked on it, and John. And I mean, it's been a lot of moving parts and a lot of redesign and a lot of moving 20 feet here and 20 feet there. And to be honest with you, I don't know exactly where it's going to go when it gets to one location, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have some asphalt with the Greenway, but it might be in the middle of a stream, but I'm not real sure. But we do have a Greenway, I think. So be glad to answer any questions you have. Jeff can answer any, Dorn. I mean, they know it as well as anybody, if not better, at this point.
Are there any questions? I appreciate all the hard work everyone from staff has put into this project. All right, moving on then, we have items M, N, and O that are all related to the rec center. Mr. Swisher?
Item M, I spoke to the board about putting this item on the agenda to go ahead and get the design and construction plans for the building in the process, so that, we might be able to take advantage of some of the stimulus money that's out there or some low financing rates. It takes about 6 to 9 months to actually get the design plans and everything. So we have put that out. We put out an RFQ. We will have those in by Friday of this week, I think. So we'll have them loaded up online by Monday so that you can have them for the Tuesday meeting. And we will let you know then, who we've selected. And in RFQ, you don't really ask for, for prices, request for qualifications, but we'll have some idea of what it will cost to do that design. And so we'll have that to you. We have a preliminary artist rendering of what it will look like, and they will take that rendering and then put the schematics and everything to it along with that. There won't be all of the design. We won't have some of the construction documents and things like that because we're not ready for that yet, but we will get it to a point that that we are ready to go out and get that. So we will have those. I think Ernie said they would be in Friday. I think we got one in today, and the rest of them will come in over the weekend. We'll get them loaded up. That's item M. Item N is an intent to reimburse that will allow you to basically reimburse yourself for the cost of the design and construction plans once we do that. And when we go out and get if the board moves forward, if we're lucky enough to move forward with building the building and we get the loan, we can then reimburse ourselves for the cost of the building and also the cost of the design and construction of the building. So that's what that is for. Item O, capital project fund. We put the money from the sale of the lease that we have on the tower and the money we received back for reimbursement from an employee. We put that into capital reserve fund. We're going to move it out to a capital project fund. We'll move it to a capital project fund for Parks and Recreation, and that will allow us to take the money and spend it on the plans, construction plans, and so forth, or any other Parks and Rec project that may come up that we need to spend it on. But the biggest bulk of it right now will be spent on the construction plans, if the board approves it.
Are there any questions? Is there any more on the Recreation Center at this point, Curtis?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then we'll move on to item P, which is consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 6 for fiscal year 2021.
This budget amendment has really 2 big items in it, and both of those have reimbursement revenues to go along with it. The first one is to increase the street department expenditures $753,000. That covers the street repairs and repaving costs associated with the demolition of the wastewater treatment plant. That's the plant that was down at the end of Beeson Road. We did the demolition on that plant, and the heavy trucks going up and down the road did significant damage to the road. So we're going in, it's $310,000. We'll go in and repair that road. That money will be reimbursed out of our water sewer fund. And we also are going in, as you all have seen, City County Utilities they're doing a lot of projects on most of the roads all over town, but a lot of them right around to the school, Kernersville Elementary School, and several of them down near the U Library, English Street, Davis Street, Harmon Lane. So we've worked out an agreement with them. Instead of going in and patching the road, 20 feet here, 20 feet down the street from it and everything else, they'll go in and patch it, and we're going to go in and just repave that street because it really is, as was discussed last month, their patch jobs sometimes don't hold up. So Dorn talked to Courtney Driver at CCUC, and she's fine with us going in and repaving that. So we will be reimbursed from CCUC using our water and sewer funds to do that as well. So all of that money will be reimbursed to us. Then you have the Greenway expenditures, and those will come back. Whatever it was there, $1.6 million, $1.7 million will be reimbursed for the Greenway there. And then the $60,000 is an increase in the landfill tipping fees. So we've had an increase in that. And so we've got more tonnage going in than what we anticipated. So we will have that increase. So most of that, about all of it will be reimbursed. There will be some that, is not quite reimbursed, but most of it will be to us. I'd be glad to answer any questions the board might have about that. And if you got any questions about it, before Tuesday, just give me a call.
Are there any questions at this time? All right, then we will move on to item Q, consideration of a proposal for financial auditing services.
Our contract is has expired with the auditing firm that we use. We're recommending that we renew our contract with them. They give us a new contract for auditing services for fiscal year 2021 through 2025. Yeah, the prices for that, they're in the memo from Franz to myself. B. Dixon, Goodman Hughes, we've been satisfied with what they do. They've been a very good firm. They do many municipalities, counties across the state, a lot of nonprofits. The good thing about them is, it's not one person that comes year after year. We have usually every year they have a new lead auditor that comes in. So that changes it up a little bit and, allows them to not see the same old thing every year. So we've been pleased with what they've done, how they performed and the recommendations that they come in and make to us, every year with the audit. So we're recommending going back with them again for the next 5 years.
Are there any questions? All right. The next item on the agenda is R and S. Consideration of a resolution for a grant application for a transit service for seniors and individuals with disabilities, and consideration of a contract for transit service for seniors and individuals with disabilities.
I'll take them and Jeff can answer any questions, or I can answer any. The first one is the grant application. It's through the Winston-Salem Urban Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's 80% reimbursement. Town pays 20%. That's been the standard since we've had it since 2013. We've had that grant for our senior transit program. And so the first one, I guess it's R, is applying for that grant to get the 80-20 grant. And then S is approval of the contract. Our new provider will be Anchor Mobility. We had two folks submit proposals, Anchor Mobility and Archangels Incorporated. Archangels has provided it in the past, and this year Anchor Mobility came in at a little bit lower rate. So we're recommending that we go with Anchor Mobility effective July 1st, 2021.
Are there any questions? Thank you. All right, we are next to the consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes for the February 24 briefing meeting, approval of minutes for the March 2 regular meeting, approval of minutes for the March 2 closed session, and consideration of a request by the Kiwanis Club of Kernersville for the Town Hall courtyard for Miss Mary's Children's Parade. Are there any questions about any of those items? All right. Mr. Swisher, is there anything you're expecting to present at the meeting that is not listed on the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Mr. Wolf, is there anything you're planning to present at the meeting that is not currently listed on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Powell, is there anything that you are planning to present at the meeting that's not currently listed on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, that brings us back to the briefing agenda for tonight. Are there any more questions or comments about anything on the regular agenda? All right, since there are not, we'll move on to item 2, matters to be presented by the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. So Mr. Wolf and I and Mr. Swisher and I, Ms. Tanner and Mr. Hutchins and I have talked about the procedure and timing for going back to having not remote meetings, but in-person meetings. There have been a lot of people in our community vaccinated who've been in the groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on April 7th, the governor is opening vaccinations up to everyone, 16 and up. And the pharmaceutical companies are working on tests for people younger than 16. So it looks like it will be time to start considering when to have meetings where all of the board is in person in the courtroom together. And I think we still have some considerations as to social distancing and issues like that. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to think about it tonight and maybe consider taking action on Tuesday to set our plans up for the future. Mr. Swisher, what are your thoughts about what we discussed and the procedures we would have for an in-person meeting? And this would be looking at possibly having the April 28th briefing in person, but in the courtroom instead of the conference room, and the May 4th regular meeting in the courtroom.
Yeah, we've discussed it at staff level, and I mean, I don't see any problem going back to live meetings. In fact, I was looking tonight. I mean, we'd initially set up a way to have 3 of the boards sit at the desk where you normally sit, and then we would split up some desks. But I'm not so sure that if Alderman Cruz and Alderman Pennick slide to the very side, we can probably get 5 board members at the desk. But either way, we can certainly accommodate all the board members at the desk, and then utilizing the desk that Keith Hooker and Jeff Hatman normally use. So we can definitely accommodate all the board members, and Mr. Powell, Mr. Wolf, and myself, and Mr. Hooker in some fashion there as well. We can accommodate 24 people in the courtroom, sitting out in the audience. You know, for the May meeting, I think that it might have a crowd at the May meeting. So for the May meeting only, maybe I would recommend that we do an overflow area in the basement of the old library, the big room down where the senior center is. And we could, you know, if you choose to live stream it, we could certainly live stream it for everybody on YouTube, or we could do a lot channel and just live stream it to YouTube in the basement of the library. We could have a staff person over there so that if someone would like to speak on an agenda item, they can go to a podium there with an iPad very similar to what we have in the courtroom. And then they could speak, and you all could see them here in the courtroom. So that wouldn't be very difficult. Adam Hutchins and the folks in the IT department have tested it to see if that will work. It will work, and so we can do that, and we can obviously have a camera up to kind of live stream it. It won't be a great live stream, but it will be a live stream enough to accomplish that. I would recommend if you go back and you have the overflow room in the library and you have folks in the courtroom, I would recommend that we don't take any call-in. Folks calling in about items on the agenda. I would recommend at that point that they either come and go to the basement of the library, or they come in the courtroom. You also have the option that if we have a lot of people and both of those are filled up, then you can easily have the option as mayor to have the people wait outside and come in when it's their turn to speak on an item. So, you know, we can certainly accomplish it and go back to live meetings. The briefing will not be any problem. And I don't know that you would have over 24 here for the May meeting, but there is a rezoning case proposed to be on the agenda that night that may draw a crowd. I think after that, I think you would probably be okay without setting up an overflow area. I don't think you would, normally we don't have over 10 in the courtroom, so I don't anticipate having 24 unless it is a rezoning case, at which point we would know probably from the turnout at the planning board meeting the month before, and then we could set up that overflow. But we can certainly meet all the requirements set forth and have the live meeting. You could still, if you have 4 board members or 3 board members here, you could have 2 board members participate remotely. They are allowed to participate remotely and vote under the general statute that's currently in place, as long as the state has a state of emergency in place. It is still in place, so that would still apply. They just have to be able to be heard, not necessarily be seen, so they could call in and participate remotely if there's a board member or 2 board members or however many that wishes to do that. The rest of them could be here live and someone can call in. So we're ready to go if the board chooses to. We don't think it will be any problem to do that.
Any thoughts or comments?
I'm sitting at home, but I think by May, with as many department heads having the vaccine, I think by carrying out the safety precautions that I'm certainly ready, that I would be willing to come back to be in person.
Any other comments?
No, I'm in favor of all person and all of us being there at the same time. I feel like we probably could have done that in the last few months, but hey, the quicker the better.
So then the question is, does the board want to vote at it on the agenda at the Tuesday meeting, or just leave it to the town manager and I to discuss it when we set the agenda and then announce it with the publication of the agenda?
Is it something we need to vote for, John? I mean, we just decide we're going live and in person.
I think it's best to vote for the board to vote on it. I think it strengthens it. It goes back to what you were doing previously, and it expresses the board's opinion, no matter what the vote is, but the board's opinion, if it is in favor of doing this, that the board on behalf of town government intends to do this. I just think it would be better to go that route of a vote Tuesday night.
Thank you.
And I do think the board probably needs to let us know if you wish to live stream it on YouTube like we've been doing for everyone, or if we set up a remote area, if you just want to lock the YouTube channel and just live stream it to a monitor in that remote area. We can do either. Doesn't matter to us. I think since you have been live streaming all the meetings, I think if you decide to stop live streaming those, I think the board needs to make that decision. But I would recommend in May, anyway, with the rezoning case on the agenda, that you set up a remote area and at least live stream it to that remote area. Now, whether you live stream it to everybody on YouTube or not, we can do it either way. That would be up to the board.
Madam Mayor, I have one more comment to make along those lines too. From a legal ad perspective and adjoining property letter perspective, any rezonings, we would want to make sure that the legal ad and the letters indicated clearly how people would be able to attend the public hearing.
Jeff Hatling, are there any notices that have gone out that would be relevant to the May meeting that would have us need to have it as a remote meeting because of how the notice has gone out?
No, only notices we sent are only related to the planning board meetings.
And so that's something you could change and have reflected in the notices that go out for the board meetings?
The planning board
meetings. Yeah, after the planning board meeting is held, it's turned over the town clerk, and Keith does it. Keith does all the notices for the aldermen and the format of those. So yeah, so the staff's planning board notices have no reflection on the board of aldermen. So the town clerk would have clear ability to properly advertise and provide notice.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
we're good on the notices from the Board of Aldermen side.
Okay. So,
Mayor,
Keith, have there been any notices that have gone out relating to the April briefing or the May meeting?
No, ma'am. Those will not go out until later in April.
Okay.
And it will be after the April 6th meeting,
Mayor Pro Tem
or whatever you
Fulton?
decide.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mayor. I'm in favor of going back in person. I'm also in favor of live streaming. If we can only have 24 in the courtroom when we go back in person, I would just think we might want to consider our department heads, maybe being at a different location if we are going to have a big hearing so that more citizens could be in the room. Just something to consider, just because they do count as bodies in the room. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you hadn't thought of it. Thank you.
Mr. Swisher, with your social distancing count of about 23, did you, my recollection is you included at least some of the department heads and town staff.
No, all we did was we just marked off the number of chairs available in the courtroom. So there's 23 available. If we have all of the department heads in here, which I would not have them all in here at the May meeting, we can stream it to another channel to where they can see it as well. So probably wouldn't have but one or two of the department heads in here, which would still leave you probably 21 chairs in the actual area where the audience sits. So we could probably get it, we could get it where all 23 or 24 are available.
Did you count yourself, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Powell, and Mr. Hooker in the 23?
No, we
Or
will
are you
not be
separate from that?
we won't be sitting out where the audience sits. So that we will have 23 available seats for the audience. We can all sit, we can all distance and sit up in the area where the board normally sits. We can all get in there. And that will leave all of the 23 or 24 seats for the citizens that are coming to the meeting.
Okay, so with Mr. Wolf's recommendation, is there a motion to add, and Mayor Pro Tem Fulton's comments, is there a motion to add 2 agenda items to the agenda? It would be item T, consideration of returning to in-person meetings, and item U, consideration of live streaming Board of Aldermen briefing and regular meetings on YouTube.
Mayor, I'll make that motion to add them to the agenda, and I would like the in-person as well as the live stream.
Mr. Wolf, is there any other wording you would suggest for the motions or the agenda items?
No, ma'am. I think they're two separate issues, and I think putting them on the way you did, or suggested, I think that's the way to do it. To discuss, first of all, meeting itself, and secondly, the potential of live streaming in the future.
Okay, so the potential of meeting would be agenda item T, and the live streaming would be item U. Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton to add both of these to the agenda. I have a second by Chris Thompson. Since it is a remote meeting, we do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have anything to present tonight?
No, Mayor, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Cruz?
No, ma'am. I got an issue that I've had some calls on, but I'll have to talk to the street department with that. But I don't think it's anything we need to talk about tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Boyer?
Just a comment. Yesterday's Kernersville News was really a really interesting publication. There was a great 150th anniversary supplement that did a lot to educate the public on the history of Kernersville. But there were two editorial columns, one by Mayor Morgan about how important the paper is in terms of preserving the history of the community. And then a wonderful article by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton about her visit with Officer Houle that I think was very uplifting. And so I just wanted to commend those people for that. And actually a great article from Joyce Kravick about how faith drives what she does.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Thompson?
Nope, just happy Easter.
Happy Easter and also happy birthday, Kernersville. This is the 150th anniversary. Joe Penix and Ernie Pages are working on plans for opening a time capsule that was buried 50 years ago. Kelly Hargett and volunteers with the Kernersville Museum are working on celebrations when the gathering limits are eased in our state that we can have to celebrate Kernersville's birthday in a festive and fun way. So we're looking forward to this year, learning more about Kernersville's history and enjoying that small town atmosphere of our community. So the next thing on our agenda is matters to be presented by the town manager and town attorney. Mr. Swisher?
I do not have anything, Mayor.
Mr. Wolf?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Powell?
No, ma'am.
Is there a closed session this evening?
If someone would make the motion, yes.
Have requested such.
If there's no further business on the briefing agenda, can I have the motion for the closed session?
I'm willing to read it. They typically ask me to read this, so I'll make the motion for closed session. It's my understanding, Madam Mayor, that there are certain matters about which our town attorney needs to advise us and which fall within the attorney-client privilege for discussion in closed session. I further understand, Madam Mayor, that the board needs to meet in closed session regarding land acquisition. I therefore move, Madam Mayor, that the board go into closed session to confer with our legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege and to discuss land acquisition, which is permitted by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.
I will second, but I would like to say I know it's Kernersville's birthday, but also today is Jenny's birthday as well. But I'll second that motion. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. I'm not as old as Kernersville.
Happy birthday, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And all the birthday love from the board. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor. Thank you.
Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. This board is now going into closed session. Welcome back to the briefing meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. We're back in open session. Are there any more matters before the board this evening?
Madam Mayor, I just have two quick items and neither one of them require a vote of the board. Just want to let you know that we've been meeting and discussing 4th of July activities, and right now it looks as though with the change in the wording of the executive order that we will be able to have the 4th of July parade as normal, as well as the concert before the fireworks and the 5K run. So they've changed the wording. Last year, the wording was that you could not have an event that had over 100 people at the event, and they've changed that now so that it reads that you cannot have over 100 in any one group at any one time. So we can keep those groups separate in all of those activities, and we feel as though we can have those as we normally had them. I think the 4th of July, the parade and the 5K will be on Saturday, and the fireworks and the concert will be on Sunday, mainly because the parade and the 5K run are in the morning. That would conflict with church on Sunday. So we're going to have those on Saturday, and then the fireworks and the parade on Sunday. That is the plan right now. Unless that changes, unless the order changes, we will move forward with that. And I'll keep you updated if it changes. But that's what we're looking at right now, and hopefully we can move forward with that. The other thing is, and I don't think it has to be approved by the board. If it does, I'll bring it to you Tuesday. I've been talking to Chief Summers about a couple of our policies regarding living requirements for officers and the take-home vehicle policy. We're going to change it. If we can change it out, again, I don't know if the board has to approve it. If you do, we're recommending, as far as the living requirements go, that we eliminate that. Right now, the requirement is they live within either 25 or 30 miles of the town limits. We're having a difficult time hiring folks. And really, when living requirements were in place, it was when we had fewer people on a shift, and we'd have to call folks back. But now we have 7 or 8 folks on shift at all times. So really, there's very few occasions when we have to call someone back, and we usually know about those. We can plan for those in advance. We've got great mutual aid with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department in Winston-Salem also. So we don't feel that there's a need at this point to have them live within a certain distance of Kernersville. So, basically it boils down, if they can get here for work, then that's what matters. The other one will be take home policy on cars. What is it? Is it 20 miles right now? Right now it's 13. Right now it's 13, and we're recommending moving that to 30 miles. It's what we found is, we've done the study on it. It's beneficial for those officers to take the cars home. Cars last longer. We get longer wear out of those cars. And right now, it's what they do is they drive at 13 miles and they park it somewhere at a pre-approved place. It's better if we don't have to park those at pre-approved places. And officers can take them home if they have a special assignment or a special duty. So right now, we have several of them that take them home over 13 miles anyway. We've not noticed really any change in increase in mileage or any of that. Basically it would increase it. Could stand to increase it 5,000 to 6,000 miles a year on the vehicle. That's not, even when it's happened, it's not really decreased the value of the car based on when we sell it. So we'll be looking at changing that to 30 miles from the 13 that it currently is, and eliminating the living requirement. But we think both of those, in today's environment, trying to hire officers, we need to do those. So if we can do those without the board approving them, we'll certainly move forward with that. If the board needs to approve it, we'll bring it back to the board. I think y'all do have to approve the take-home car policy, but not the policy regarding the living requirement. So I'll check on that and bring it to you Tuesday if we need to. And that's all I have.
Okay, is there any further business before the board this evening? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Alderman Boyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have second by, I think Chris was a little ahead of you, Jenny. So I have a second. I have a second by Alderman Thompson. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, motion to adjourn. How do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz? If you can turn your microphone on.
You won't use, turn the microphone.
I lost my hair.
How do you vote, Alderman Cruz?
In favor?
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
Favor. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.